Hello, my name's Andrew Brooks. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and today's video is going to be slightly different to my other ones. I'm not going to be showing you stuff from my collection. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Wings' 1979 tour, and in particular their last ever concert up in Glasgow. Hello, and as I said, we're going to be looking at a particular tour of Paul McCartney and Wings from 1979. It's the final Wings tour, and there is a CD out called The Last Flight, or Wings' Last Flight. It comes in different incarnations, and this is the copy of it I've got. It's called Paul McCartney and Wings' Last Flight, the complete 79 Glasgow concert. Now, as you can see, it's in a cardboard slipcase. Not the most inspiring cover. There's far better pictures that they could have put on there than that. So that's probably my only gripe about this particular release. The rest of it is great because it's got so-called the entire Glasgow concert, which runs for about 2 hours, just a little bit less than 2 hours, but it's also got on there the concert for Kampuchea tracks as well. There's another 6 tracks from that session, or that concert I should say. But I'm going to be just concentrating on the Glasgow shows, which are featured on this CD. Now, as I said, it's not the most inspiring of covers. That's the slipcase, the cardboard slipcase, and then once you take it out you get the CD again with not a very inspiring cover. There's the track listing on the back with a small picture, a couple of pictures. It opens up. There's no booklet per se, it's just a bunch of photos from the shows, from the concerts, and it's a double CD, and my particular copy is a Vigitone or Vigatone CD, and it opens up like that. And when you just look at the CD like that, that's pretty poor. However, it does come with a nice booklet, not included in the CD. It just comes in the slipcase with the CD case. So opening up, and it has got some rather nice photos from the tour. It was a UK tour, with track listings, and the tour was used to introduce the world to the new incarnation of Wings. 2 new guys, so you've got Paul and Linda obviously, and Denny Lane. Then you've got Steve Holley, who was the new drummer, and Lawrence Juba, who's the new guitarist, who hadn't actually played on London Town, the album, which came before Back to the Egg. However, you can see them in the videos for I've Had Enough, and they were asked to perform in the videos, even though they didn't actually participate on the album. However, they sound really great. It is my favourite Wings lineup, and I've had a little chat with Lawrence about the shows, and he very kindly gave me some information about who did what and things like that. So there we go. I'm just showing you the rest of the book. We're nearly there now, and we're now on the last page, and there. So, as I said, I've been listening to the CDs of the concert. Unfortunately, I just missed the tour. I was 13, so I wasn't going to concerts back then. So I just missed this tour, which is a shame, because obviously then McCartney didn't tour again for another 10 years, and that's when I caught him for the first time 10 years later. However, I really wish I could have seen these tours. Like I wish if I could go back in time to see the Beatles, I'd love to see them in Hamburg. If I could go back in time to see McCartney, I'd probably like to see this tour. So I've made some notes. Some notes. So the tour itself ran from the 23rd of November to the 29th of December 1979, and they were playing. They started off in Liverpool, the Royal Court Theatre, where they did rehearsals, and they bust in some Quarrybank school people, pupils, to watch the rehearsals. And I do believe I recall seeing that on a Nationwide TV program, which was a British sort of newsy sort of program. I do vaguely remember that. I'll have a look. If I can find a YouTube clip of it, I'll add it to the bottom of this my video here. So as I say, it started off in Liverpool at the Royal Court Theatre, then it moved to the Apollo in Manchester, the Gaumont in Southampton, and then it went to Brighton at the Conference Centre. Now I have definitely got a link to the rehearsals at the Brighton shows, and McCartney does 20 Flight Rock in the rehearsal. So it's a great little clip. It's not the best quality, but you see they introduce Steve and Lawrence as the new guys to the band. Then it moves to Wembley, and they played, I didn't realise this, but they played 3 different locations in Wembley, in London. They played Lewisham, they played Wembley, presumably the not the stadium, the small arena there, and I also played the Rainbow, which is a very old concert place where the Beatles even played, but it's no longer used. It's shut down. I believe it's now a church. The building's still there, so you can still go and see it, the Rainbow in Finsbury Park. Then they moved up north to Birmingham, I say up north, a little bit to Birmingham, to the Odeon there. Then they moved to the City Halls in Newcastle, up to Edinburgh, they played the Odeon, then to Glasgow at the Apollo, and then for the final flight, so although the Glasgow gig is labelled as Wings' last flight, the last concert this lineup of Wings did was for the Campuchia concerts in London, but that wasn't a full concert. That was like 6 songs. So the last full concert was in Glasgow, and it was December the 17th, 1979. As I say, it included Paul Linder, Denny Lane. You got Lawrence Juba on guitar, Steve Holly on drums, and then Howie Casey led the brass section. There was like 4 different guys in the brass section. And this tour was meant to be like the opening leg of a kind of world tour, really, because after they played in the UK, they were meant to play in Japan, Europe, and then the USA. And unfortunately, after playing these gigs in '79, on the way to Japan tour in 1980, that's when McCartney ran into a little bit of trouble at the airport. He got himself arrested because he had some marijuana in his suitcases, and that's where he was imprisoned for a few days while they were trying to sort out and get him back. So that's when the tour stopped, and I can kind of see why that was the end of it, really. They didn't go on to Europe or to the USA. So really the UK shows are the only shows that are available. Now I asked Lawrence, apart from the Glasgow show, was there any other shows recorded, because this sounds absolutely fantastic, and in fact one of the tracks was used as the B-side for the Coming Up single. It was Coming Up live in Glasgow, so it had been professionally recorded. So obviously I asked him, did he remember any of the other shows being recorded, and what he said was this was the only show that was multi-track recorded, and it was actually mixed by Jeff Emerick, legendary Beatles engineer, and I think McCartney's used him as a couple of times as producer. So this is the only full concert that's recorded on multi-track. Lawrence did say that obviously the Campuchia stuff has been recorded on multi-track, because that was actually released on a record, one of the records for Concert at Campuchia. So yes, that was also recorded on multi-track. Lawrence did say other gigs were probably recorded from the sound desk, and they were probably just 2-track, which probably wouldn't be such good quality. And I'll have to try and research, because I don't actually remember seeing any bootlegs. And you're probably all screaming at me now going, no, I've got one. I don't actually remember seeing any bootlegs of any of the other shows from this tour. So there we are. And then I also asked Lawrence about the guitar solos, because there's some absolutely blinding guitar solos during this gig. And I asked him, did he play them, or did any other band members play them? And he very kindly told me which ones he played and who played the others. So I'll come on to that when I actually do the review. Now I looked up on McCartney's website about the tour, because they list all the tours that he's ever done, and they talk about the '79 tour, not in any great detail really, other than where they played. And on it, they say they had a 40-strong crew, which is quite a small crew really for a world tour. Presumably, if they'd have gone on to America or whatever, they'd have been playing bigger locations, bigger crew. And one other interesting thing from the McCartney website is it says they played Live and Let Die. Now on this CD, there's no Live and Let Die. So whether they played it at other gigs and then it was dropped in favour of Mull of Kintyre, because when they're in Scotland, Paul always plays Mull of Kintyre. So it could be that it was dropped in favour of that. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can only go by the CD. So, as I said, I've been listening to it and I've made a few notes. So it starts off with a fanfare from Howie Casey and his brass section, sort of like a trumpets playing of the band coming onto the stage. You can hear the crowd get warming up, and then when the fanfare sort of reaches its peak, they go nuts, and obviously the band have now come on stage, and they launch straight into Got to Get You Into My Life, which is not a bad version, I have to say, sung by Paul, obviously. And it's nice to hear, proper brass instruments playing the where they should be playing, instead of a keyboard playing them. No offence to Wicks, but it's always nice to hear the real things. It then moves on to Getting Closer, which is a track off of their Back to the Egg album. Now, for me, Back to the Egg is the epitome of Wings. I love it far more than any other Wings album. I like them all, but this is my absolute favourite. So, and it seems to be sort of rejected by McCartney a lot. And when I've been listening to these tracks, you can hear these songs sound so good live, and you are just thinking to yourself, Paul, why aren't you playing some of these songs in your current tour? Okay, he's on lockdown at the moment, but recent tours, he could have put in some of these great tracks, which he just seems to have totally blanked out. And how many more times do we need to hear some of the tracks that he constantly tours with? But anyway, Getting Closer, track from Back to the Egg, and it's one of my favourites. And then it goes into Every Night, which again is sung by Paul. And this is where Lawrence said that he plays the solos on all of the tracks apart from 3 or 4, and I'll tell you those. So there's a beautiful guitar solo in this from Lawrence, so I really, really love it. And then the next track we skip onto is a Denny Laine track, also from Back to the Egg, and it's called Again, Again and Again. And if you've heard Sam Wiles's podcast, I did a little chat with Sam, and I told him the story of meeting Denny in the pub and how we got him to sing Again and Again. I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to check out Sam Wiles's podcast. It's called Paul or Nothing, and it's available on all your favourite podcast sites. So anyway, check it out, Paul or Nothing, and I'll have a chat with Sam, who's the presenter on it. So Again and Again and Again, sung by Denny, and it's a cracking version. Again, another song that he could do live. Interestingly, the next track is from the London Town album, which, as I said, this lineup never performed on other than Paul, Linda and Denny. London Town was the trio there, and they do I've Had Enough, and it's a decent version. You can watch Steve and Lawrence doing in the video doing the stuff, but for the video for I've Had Enough, it's available on YouTube, I guess. You have a look. And then the next track is a Denny Laine song, No Words, and he actually goes on to say this is the first song that he and Paul wrote together. And when they're playing it, you can hear, I'm not sure of the technical name for it, it's a bit like the Peter Frampton thing, whereas he's playing his guitar, you can hear his voice sounding like the guitar. I don't know if it's called a vocoder or something like that, but there's a little bit of that going on in here, and other tracks throughout this concert as well. So yeah, No Words, and it's Denny and Paul's first song they wrote together, and I'm just looking here, what Lawrence told me, and he says Denny plays guitar solo at the end of No Words, and it's not bad. It's not bad. So after No Words, they then go on to Linda's track, Cook of the House. There's a little bit of banter, a bit of Scottish banter going on before Linda starts. Paul putting on his fake Scottish accent, you and all that sort of stuff. Goes into Linda, and I have to say it's not a bad version. I love Linda to bits, and I've heard her do this better on other albums. But I have to ask myself, why don't they do Seaside Woman? Why not Seaside Woman? Why keep sticking with the Cook of the House? Who knows? We'll never know. But it's not a bad version, and you can actually hear her singing the words quite clearly, whereas on the album version they're a little bit muffled. This is quite clear. Next up is another Back to the Egg track. So they are really touring on this concert on this album, Back to the Egg. Again, Paul does his Scottish accents, and this was, he says it's a single that had been out earlier in the year, and I have to say, for me, when this starts up, the guitars are fab, the drumming, Steve Holly's drumming is excellent, and even the keyboards by Linda is awesome. This is, for me, one of the great songs by this band on this tour. So I really love this one, Old Siam Sir, from Back to the Egg. Next one is introduced by Steve Holly, the drummer, and he says, you know, going to do the next song, and Paul's getting on the piano, and they're going to do an old favourite, and then Paul, obviously messing around as he does in concert, he launches into When the Red Red Robin Comes bobbing along, and they'll go, oh yeah, we really like that one, but we want to do the song that he was meant to do, which is Maybe I'm Amazed, and it's a nice version of it, actually. Not bad at all, not bad. Next up is another piano tune by Paul, and it's Fool on the Hill, and again the brass section come in, and I have to say it's great to hear proper instruments. So when the flutes are playing, they are real flutes, they're not keyboards, so, and it's really, really good. Next up, staying on the piano, Denny introduces this as a kind of religious song. I suppose it is in a way. It's the perennial classic that he always does again, Let It Be. It's a nice version. It's basically Paul on the piano singing it, and then Lawrence does a guitar solo, which I have to say is absolutely lovely. It's great. It really, really goes well with the song. Okay, next up is the instrumental, and Paul does a guitar solo on this, according to Lawrence, and it's from the McCartney album, Hot as Sun. Okay, never heard him play it anywhere else apart from on this tour, and it's pretty good. And then you get the horns come in with quite jazzy feel to it. So yeah, it's not a bad version at all. Next up, you've got Paul introducing the next track, also from Back to the Egg, and he talks about the audience wanting to pongo. Now, I know he's probably mucking around, and 79, it's all punks, and this Back to the Egg album was Paul's attempt to be a punk album, I suppose. But he keeps referring to pogoing as pongoing, so he wants everyone to pongo. And it's a pretty faithful representation, very close to the album version of Spin It On, which is a real fast song. Again, another one that I reckon Paul could do now. Now on the CD I listened to, there is a break at this point. You can hear there's a definite break at the end of the song into the next one, and I wasn't sure if that's where Live and Let Die should have been, if it was ever performed in Glasgow. I've got no idea. But anyway, the next song came by Paul. He talks about it being from the 1950s, and it's the Eddie Cochran 20 Flight Rock. Now, as I said, there is video footage of them rehearsing this in Brighton, so I will put the link on at the end of the bottom of this video, so you can watch it. It's on my YouTube channel, so just click the link and it'll take you straight to it, and you can then actually see the setup and how the band's set up. Next one. Okay. I think, I'm not sure who it is, but I'm pretty sure it's Lawrence talking about when he was younger, this song, the next song, really, really meant a lot to him. And then Paul launches into Tiptoe Through the Tulips in a Tiny Tim style voice. And then he says, oh, I'm offended by that. And it's actually Go Now, which is Denny's go-to song, really. That's whenever you see Denny in concert, you want him to do Go Now. So he does. Next up, we have Lawrence introduces another song from Back to the Egg, and it's Arrow Through Me. Again, it's another really good representation from the album version. They're obviously so well rehearsed that they're doing these Back to the Egg songs, and it's very clear that it is the album that they are trying to get into, the public trying to get the public into rather. But for me, it's one of my favourite albums. But again, it seems shunned by Paul, as I've already mentioned earlier. It's a great version of Arrow Through Me. Next we have Linda introducing the next song, and she starts talking about the New Year and things like that up in Scotland. And when she hands over to Paul, Paul goes, well, actually this is before the New Year. And interestingly, he says it's our new single, and it's Wonderful Christmas Time. However, if you look at the single, it's just labelled as Paul McCartney. So whether he was being sort of gracious, didn't want to appear, this is actually my single, and it's nothing to do with the band, but he's actually introduces it as our new single, and it's Wonderful Christmas Time. I have to say, I've listened to it a couple of times back to back, and I think probably because it's nearing Christmas. When the tour started, they probably didn't include it because it wasn't quite Christmas time. It's the end of November. But as the tour has progressed, I may be wrong, I wasn't there, but for me, Wonderful Christmas Time sounds like it's the worst rehearsed song of the whole show. It's almost as if they haven't really played it very often to get to know it. So it's quite interesting when you think about it, that he's now introduced it as a new single, and although the band weren't part of it, he's now introduced it as it's a band single. But because it's not been that rehearsed, it's probably not the best version of it. And then he asked the crowd, it's all very well hearing all these old stuff, but do you want to hear something new? And of course they all go yeah, and he says, well, we're going to do it anyway. And it's coming up. Now most people, if they've got big Beatles collections, and particularly in the States, if you've heard McCartney's played on the radio in the States, at the time this next song came out as a single over here in the UK and America, and it had the studio version as the A-side coming up, and it was the studio version over here which did really well in the charts for Paul. Not sure what number, probably number one, but not sure. In the States, the live version, which was on the B-side, got more airplay, and consequently it became number one in the States. You have to excuse my loud computer, it's just shutting down. It was the live version that got to number one as a number one single in the States, and the live version was actually from this show, hence Jeff Emmerich's recording of it. So it makes you wonder, as it was recorded professionally, the whole show was recorded professionally. I do apologise for the sound again. As it was recorded professionally, was there the intention of having more than just coming up released as a single? Was the whole show going to be released as an album, such as Wings Over America? Presumably the whole tour, the world tour, would have been recorded as well, and bits of different shows, and of course it never got any further than the UK. But anyway, the Glasgow concerts version of Coming Up was then released officially, and if ever you buy Coming Up as a single, it's on the B-side. We then go into Good Night Tonight, and this is such a good song. Didn't appear on the album Back to the Egg. It was a standalone single performed by the lineup that you see before you in this concert, and it's a great version with one little thing I'm not 100% sure on, because I haven't seen it on video and I wasn't there. Robbie the Robot. He introduces Robbie the Robot, and I think this robot comes on stage, and all it is a drum machine, so you get the nice sort of disco feel drum style with all the everything that goes with it, the accompaniment that goes with it. But this is a cracking version of Good Night Tonight, and you just think, why don't you do things like this, Paul? We've had enough of all the usual stuff that you play in your concerts. Do something different. Do this. And it then goes into a solo version of Yesterday with the live brass, presumably playing where the strings would normally play, but it's played by brass. And it's McCartney doing Yesterday, and we've seen it 100 times before. Moving on. Now this is the track that makes me think Live and Let Die was dropped for this track, because he only ever performs this in Scotland and Canada. And it's Mull of Kintyre, and obviously introduces bagpipes. He has real bagpipes on the stage, but it's 8 minutes long. 8 minutes of Mull of Kintyre, and I guess you had to be there at the concert to fully enjoy it. It's not my most favourite track. I prefer the B-side, Girls' School, but and this isn't bad. It's great because of the bagpipes, but other than that, I've never seen him do it live, so it's probably, I should say I'd like to see him do it live, but personally. And then we go on to the encore. He's called back on, they go off and he's called back on, and then you're treated to a 7-minute version, not of Hey Jude, thank God, not Hey Jude, please. 7 minutes of Band on the Run, and it's a great version. It's a great closure to the whole show. And as I say, I've done a little bit of research. I've listened to the show on the bootleg, and it's a great show. If ever you get a chance to listen to it, I'm pretty sure if I can find a link on YouTube to the whole show, I'll put it on as well. So at the bottom there should be a link to a video showing them rehearsing in Brighton from my channel. If I can find a YouTube clip or a YouTube version of this whole concert, I'll put it on there as well. And I'll also put a link to Sam's All or Nothing podcast. Check it out. It's a good guy. Check it out. One other question I did ask Lawrence was, were any of the shows filmed? And he said, apart from the Kampuchea, no. And that's a shame, because I suspect that when Back to the Egg Archive Edition finally comes out, whenever that is, we were promised it soon, but hey, that's back on the back burner again now. Don't be surprised if it's not a double with London Town, just like Red Rose Speedway and Wildlife was. And I suspect you're going to get this concert as a bonus. I can't, if there's no footage, and unlike McCartney now, he films everything, every concert, every sound check, everything's recorded. Back then, 79, I'm guessing, pre-video, so everything would have had to been done on film. Very expensive, very labour intensive to make it. So I'm guessing there's very little footage from this tour, maybe some home video. That would be nice. Probably Linda had her cameras, while the shows were going on. That would be nice to see some home footage. But according to Lawrence, there was no real concerts were filmed other than the Kampuchea one, which may be on YouTube. I don't know. I'll have to have a look. But that concludes my review of the Last Flight CD. As I said, it does come out on many different names, but it's commonly known as Wings Last Flight. It's the Glasgow gig, and it's fabulous. Just check it out, and hopefully it will get you into Back to the Egg if you're not already a fan. Again, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you like it. I'm trying to build up quite a few subscribers. A few of you have joined recently, and I can then try and do some more videos. I'll put some links onto to the end of the video at the bottom. Anyway, take care. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Andrew Brooks.